All right, I'm going to assume that this live stream is actually active and it's going up, even though I don't see a whole lot of evidence of it at the present time. Uh, for years now, I've been talking about that the real purposes of the powers that be, however you want to define that. Hello, everyone, as you come in. Thank you for letting me know on 5 by 5, 2 Timothy 3. I appreciate it. I've maintained for a long time that the real purpose of everything that we see going on is actually the takedown of America, and there's very little of America, real America, left. And the next would be to take down the U.S., where it becomes a basically a third world type country. That it would become the USSA kind of an idea. In other words, we become the enemy that we supposedly stood against for so long, and that's very common in psychological terms, but also in when you study nations and the history of nations. So for a long time, I've said that they would get us involved in endless wars. I've been saying this for at least two decades, maybe three, but specifically a lot since I got back from overseas and started my YouTube channel in 2009. That the real purpose of all that we see is to take down our principles, what we stand for, because as I've said so long, the the label on the bottle of the United States of America and its representation of liberty and all those things is not what's in the bottle. The contents of the bottle have been changed, and that's what we're seeing right now. Um, that they would have us spend our treasure and our blood in endless foreign wars, deplete us, which now you see banks failing right and left. All of this to show that we have no ability to carry on without these same people that have caused the problem become more in power and more controlling. So there were various ways they were going to do this. They've used the Frankfurt School's ideas. A lot of people think that this is all coming from the old Russia. It isn't. The old Russia was set up by the people in New York and London, just like, and in Frankfurt now, which came about later. But this is really being caused by people again in New York and London, not in the U.S., not in Russia, and not even in China. The thing is, as I've said long ago, is that if Russia and China, seeing that their enemy is taking themselves out, why get in their way, right? Uh, Business-wise, competition-wise, it makes sense to let your competitors basically defeat themselves. So whether or not they're privy to this new world order, powers that be, satanic, if you want to call it that, influence in the world, whether they're privy to it or not, they're definitely involved in the process, knowingly or unknowingly. So America's been bled dry. You know, I hear Colonel Douglas McGregor, saying that Ukraine has been bled white. Uh, in effect, so have we. So has the West. And they couldn't have been this stupid to think that all of those sanctions against Russia and all those other things would actually not, in the end, destroy the United States. So that again, so that they could take away the rights that we get from our Creator, and that the government itself is supposed to protect, not to challenge and interfere with. I know I'm being very verbose here. You're probably wondering, well, what does this have to do with the title of this video? Well, Ukraine is not ready for an offensive. It's not. It has no air force. It's depleted in manpower and in weapons, despite what the U.S. is saying. If you don't believe me on this, go listen to some of the best people that have been explaining this. Of course, Colonel McGregor, Scott Ritter. Brian Berletic of the New Atlas, and of course uh, the Duran with Alexander Mercouris and Alex Christoforou, who have had their fingers on this the entire time. And I feel vindicated because these guys have been saying the same thing now that I've been saying is coming for at least 2 decades, actually 3. And actually, I knew a gentleman who talked. I didn't know him personally. I knew one of his students who talked about how this was going to happen, and it's going down almost exactly the way he said it would. And I've been talking about that for a long time. Again, that they would take your treasure and your blood and deplete it, and then you would be left to their mercy. So what we see now is that the story is that Ukraine was being used to weaken Russia, sanctions as well, and all that. And yet, what's really happened, of course, is that we have been weakened. The West has been weakened, and it's just the reverse. And you can't believe that these people in power, maybe Victoria Nuland and Anthony Blinken and Biden and Susan Rice and Suzanne Powers and people like that are that stupid, but not the people that are controlling this thing. They're not. And if those people I just named thought that taking Russia out would be done by this entire thing that's been going on that would weaken them, and they couldn't see that it would weaken the people they're supposed to be working for, meaning us. And of course, they don't work for us; they work for these powers that be. The intelligence community being our most dangerous enemy, as I've said. As a matter of fact, I don't think I've ever heard anybody else say that. I think I'm the only one that's been saying that for decades, and now it's a reality. You could see it every day in the news. It's obvious. And it's not that they're that stupid, that the intelligence community doesn't know what it's doing. It does, but the people that are the decision makers make sure that the mistakes are what are pushed forward and the lies are pushed forward to our detriment. But be that as it may, again, getting back to the title of this video. So all of this may have been in some people's ideas to weaken Russia, and that way to take out a possible, along with China, take out a possible world competitor. But look at what's really happening, and I've been saying now for at least a year, that the purpose of what's going on in the Ukraine is to empty it out of its white Christians. YouTube probably doesn't like me saying that, and a lot of other people don't, and I'm not going to go into the background as to why I've been saying that, other than to say it's just manifestly obvious. I've talked about Isaiah 4, Isaiah 3 and 4, and about all the men being killed in the war. And this doesn't necessarily mean worldwide. It could be localized. It could be a pattern, which we definitely have been seeing in Ukraine, leaving a lot of single ladies there. And that's another subject I won't get into. You could all guess where I'd be going with that, but I'm not going there on this. My point is this. Knowing that they're depleted, even if they sent NATO troops, Polish or otherwise, into Ukraine to support them, and actually did give them all the weapons that Ukraine has insisted upon, which they have not received and will not. Even if they had all that, I told you very early on that Russia would kick the West's ass, NATO and the US. Why? Why would the West, if you listen to Alexander Mercouris today in his brief, you can go look up Alexander Mercouris. I've talked about him before. He gave a rundown this afternoon. Actually, it was this afternoon, I'm sure, about basically what I'm saying now that I've been saying for a long time, but then taking it the next step further. It is a war on Christendom, ladies and gentlemen. And you know how I feel about traditional Christianity, but that does not mean that I wouldn't stand for your rights to exist and to worship the way that you see fit. And it is, despite its weaknesses, in my estimation, the very best spiritual system that's institutionalized in some degree. So what's happening here? Ukraine is being told to commit Kari. If you don't know what Kari is, it means suicide. Ukraine is being told that they must go forward and commit Kari. Why? Because it further drains the West. It drains out the white Christians that could defend Ukraine against the real enemy, which isn't Russia. And it leaves it open to the occupation by other people, not Russia. Even if Russia took it over for a short period of time, that was never its objective to begin with. And if you understand the history of Ukraine, and if you understand where a certain group of people, and I'm not going to name who they are here, that would be trouble for me. They take this message down. If you know where the people that control so much came from, it's the area of Ukraine, they would want it to be at war, to burn out, to according to their scriptural and scholarly explanations that they give each other. They want it to be destroyed because they want God to destroy who they classify as the wicked. Do you understand what I'm telling you? So the United States and NATO have now told Ukraine, and they've been saying it for a long time, but they say, you must do this offensive whether you're ready or not. We've given you everything that you need. You've got to do it now. They're not making a decision based on military capability. They're making a decision based upon their desire to destroy the people of Ukraine and in turn the people of Western Europe and of North America. That's the goal. It's very disturbing. I will just end this video. I don't want it to take long. I've already been up for about 13 minutes. I will just leave this thought with you. They just arrested the SBU, Ukraine's secret police, just arrested a number of YouTube bloggers and people just reporting on what's going on in Ukraine with this war. Not giving hi Jesse, not giving information about military secrets or military movements or anything like that, but talking about how bad things are. One of those arrested was the Chilean citizen, and he has American citizenship too, I understand, Gonzalo Lira, who, despite how you feel about some of his personal biases, has been a very good reporter and has encouraged the discussion about what's going on and has admitted that Ukraine is in trouble. So Gonzalo Lira was arrested and taken away. I put that up on Twitter the other day, and I think I did mention it on a post on my community tab. Alexander Mercouris and others, Brian Berletic and others have also talked about this in greater detail than I will put you through here because, I encourage you to go listen to these people rather than, and I just give you a general 60,000 foot view and then tell you where to go to get details. So they're shutting down free speech, and yet they're supposed to be a democracy. And the excuse that they're at war with Russia does not excuse this. Gonzalo Lira is not a Ukrainian citizen. The most he could be is assisting, I guess, and they have done this, accused him of surreptitiously assisting Russia. But, if they're going to do that there, they might as well go everywhere that anybody says anything in support of, or saying that Ukraine is really in trouble. Talking about the Maidan overthrow, the coup in 2014, which our State Department, the CIA, Obama, and Victoria Nuland engineered and put in a puppet government, and then they started a war on the eastern Donbass. That's the kind of stuff that Gonzalo Lira was talking about. Because he's telling the truth, they hauled him off. Yeah, that's right, Jesse. That's very true. So, and that's going to come here too. You're right, Jesse. But we still have to speak the truth. I've been speaking it, basically. I'm not 100% always right, but I've been talking about the evil groups that are controlling this government in particular for many decades, and getting more specific about it over the last few years. So they're trying to shut down anybody who tries to explain what's really going on. And the real end result, in my estimation, as I've said for a long time here now, Zelensky's just a pawn. Zelensky's Jewish. Do you realize that? And yet they shut down, under this democracy that they supposedly have, they shut down the Ukrainian, well, the Russian Orthodox Church that works in Ukraine. So they're doing all the things that the government in the 1930s in Germany did to people, and other governments as well. Even this one has done that during this last sickness that we had, right? How many churches did they shut down because the churches refused to go along with the edicts coming out of D.C.? It's all the same thing, just using different reasons to do it. Same end results. So, once Ukraine is totally taken out, Christians thrown out of the country, partially because of Zelensky's decree. I know the Ukrainian Orthodox Church is supposed to continue there, but I suspect they'll run into trouble eventually. So Zelensky, the great leader, who used to be a pole dancer, a male pole dancer, I'm using, that's not quite true, but you get the idea, has now put Ukraine in a situation where the white Christians are going to be eliminated, either killed with all their property taken, or they'll have to flee in order to live. They'll have to go somewhere else in order to live. And then who's going to occupy that? Well, Russia will probably keep the Donbass in those areas, at least for a while. But who's going to take over Western Ukraine? Poland? NATO? Have you ever heard of the Greater Israel? Have you ever heard of the New Jerusalem in a certain group's terms? I'm not going to say any more today. I will just say this. I will end on this. The people of Ukraine need to wake up to their awful situation and stop supporting that evil regime that's being propped up and kept in power by evil influences in the United States and Western Europe. The Ukrainian people need to stand up. Even those in the army, in the military armed forces, need to stand up and march on Kyiv and take out that government. Because if they don't do it, they're all going to be dead. Pass this on to any Ukrainian you want. They'll probably put me on the same list that Scott Ritter and Tucker Carlson are on, even though I hardly have any influence. But I've been right about this almost to the T from the very start. And I'll end also on this. Again, the Ukrainian people need to realize what they're into, the awful situation they're in, how they're being betrayed. And the people in the military need to turn on their government today. March in there and take those people out. Do what they did to Mussolini in Italy. That's what they need to do. YouTube will probably say I'm calling for violence. I'm just telling you what's the options are for the people there in Ukraine. I'm just explaining the war situation. It's a war situation. What it would take to turn this around in a war situation from a military professional. I guess there are a couple of other things I could say, but I've gone on too long already. I think you get the idea about what I'm saying here. And it won't be too long before we'll be seeing very severe things going on here in the States, as we already know they are. A lot of foreign nationals are coming across our southern border, and we're having a lot of strange things that look like sabotage to me. Same things are happening in Russia, very similar things. How many food processing plants? How many fuel places? How many railroads have been destroyed in the United States over the last couple of years? And especially now, the shooting that we just had in Allen, Texas, and then the radicalization of a certain group in our country to go after straight people because this group thinks that they're being persecuted. Well, if they want to know what persecution is, they need to come and talk to me, because I've had that. And I warned that if they persecuted me, if this nation persecuted me, they would get Sodom and Gomorrah for their reward. And here we are. And I said that in 1986. Prep, pray, stay out of the way, keep your situational awareness on high. Eyes on the horizon, ears to the ground. Defend yourselves, but try to stay out of the way as best you can, because there's no way to turn this around until everybody gets to the point where they are willing to take some kind of action, and I don't see that happening. The banks are done. The assets will be held in the larger banks. We already know, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, certainly Chase is going to be holding a lot of that. And it's all by design so that they can control you from a centralized position. They don't want locals doing anything. And if the states don't wake up and stand up for their people and demand that the federal government stop all this nonsense, and I don't expect any of these states will. There are a couple that are doing a few things, but not many. You better be ready to head for the wilderness, which is chaos, because that's what it's going to be. Alrighty. I think I've said my piece. I've taken 23 minutes to do it. I'd love to get into the chat, but I probably won't. I did see some comments about that people don't recognize me, having not been here for a while, or what I'm doing. I did it for a reason, for some stuff I was doing, which is going to be over with this week, but I will probably keep at least this. I might get my hair cut. I'm not sure. I might just let it grow longer and see if I can get a decent hairstylist or something to, kind of spruce it up a little bit. I scared a couple of ladies today. I won't tell you how that happened, but I went to a store and I'm like I've said, you guys know I'm pretty bold. I see a pretty lady and I'm going to tell her she is. That's just what I do, and that's something you don't do in today's damaged society. Let me put it that way. But I'm going to do it anyway. To hell with them. We'll see you later out here.